Well, thank you for staying with Channel 1. We are now in the second hour of the program, and we would like to discuss something about food security. Now, in 2011, a disease called maize lethal necrosis was diagnosed first in Kenya, and it could have spelled doom for the food security of our country that really depends on maize. But there were some very intentional efforts that were taken by institutions and scientists and researchers to ensure that we still have a staple food that we can consume. We'd like to speak with Dr. Suresh Lingadahali Mahabaleshwara. He says I should just call him Dr. Suresh LM. Thank you very much for speaking with us. He is a pathologist at the International Maize and Wheat Improvement Center. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I hope I did not butcher your name.
No, it's yeah, normally, yeah.
Okay, karibu sana. So before we get into the heavy stuff, just explain to us what maize lethal necrosis disease is.
Yeah, maize lethal necrosis is a disease. Many people often confuse it as a virus.
All right.
Yeah, basically, it is a viral disease, and it is important to know that it is caused by two important viruses. One, the critical virus called maize chlorotic mottle virus, which was introduced during 2011. It was not there in Kenya or in Africa. Another virus called sugarcane mosaic virus, it was there in Africa for last 4 decades. So that single virus, when it came to Kenya, and it has synergistic interaction with the sugarcane mosaic virus. So due to synergistic infection to the maize, it has really affected the crop. Within the month or within 3 weeks of infection, the whole crop will be completely dead, and it has no potential to produce any yield. Especially if the single sugarcane mosaic virus, it is there alone, it is causing diseases, but it is not having much impact. Due to this synergistic or combined infection of two viruses, and it is giving more challenging. Although sugarcane mosaic virus is a part of one family called Partiviridae, there are several other viruses are associated, but this virus is a major to have infection with the maize chlorotic mottle virus. That's how the challenge has started in 2011.
In 2011.
Yeah.
And when this was detected, what was the risk?
Okay, this virus, particularly maize chlorotic mottle virus, was reported in 2011. And the risk is that, you see, the 100% crop loss, all the leading commercial varieties grown in Kenya and Eastern Africa do not have a native genetic resistance. In that case, this risk is more higher. And why this particular is devastating in Kenya or in Eastern Africa, that is the important question in the room. Because in Africa, it is a tropical weather. And tropical weather make it more conducive for the host and insect vector. There is a dynamics called the host, pathogen, and environment triangle. So the host is there, but there was no virus. And the environment was there conducive. So this particular virus came through seed. The risk is coming through seed trade, seed movement, contaminated seed. So it is well understood that it is lying on the surface in the pedicelllar region of the maize seed, so that when it comes to the point of infection, it is lying in the external. So when the first infection was detected in 2011, what happened, the surrounding plants in Bomet area, all the surrounding plots has been started infection because a conducive weather plus insect vector make it more spreading faster and faster. So then it lose the ground and it immediately spread across the whole country. And that time, people were feeling that it could be other challenges like a stress, drought, other challenges. But when it is scientifically understood, validated and confirmed, it is not the drought, it is the viral diseases, and because they have the complete knowledge, it has affected America and other countries, then they know there should be a serious effort has to be done in a coordinated and a concise way with a collaboration with a partner's effort.
And maize is a staple in Kenya
Very
and
much.
in Africa.
Yeah.
300 million people depend on it.
Yeah.
So this ideally would have spelled doom the continent, right?
Yeah.
So what steps were taken? What was done at that point now?
Very important point. As I mentioned, 300 million people are not just depending on the food, but it is a livelihood. It's a staple food, and it is a kind of a, most importantly, it is a food security crisis and seed trade disruptions. You know, people moving the grains, seed is a seed trade disruptions. And when it is coming to the point of hunger, income loss, and seed trade disruption, it is creating a big challenges in the whole continent. So once it is known, and CIMMYT together with the partners, especially all the regional partners, a special thanks to Calro, and special thanks to KFIS and all the other regional partners in Eastern Africa, especially from Ethiopia, Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania, and other Eastern Africa countries who joined hands with CIMMYT, plus the National Plant Protection Organization in Malawi, Zambia, Zimbabwe. Now, the point here that since it has already spread in Eastern Africa very rapidly, within few years, it has completely captured the whole Eastern Africa. The hope is very bleak, very weak. That means everybody in the verge of losing the crops, livelihood, and income. Many smallholder farmers, instead of getting a daily meal, they used to have one meal per 4 days. And people dropping the school, it becomes more challenging. And Dr. Hugo has made a very economic study, almost $185 million loss in Kenya alone. It is quite huge.
Yeah, that's big.
Okay. To come to the point of understanding the agriculture as such, around 2.1 million hectares as on today is growing maize, and which is equally about 3.6 million tons. Okay. The productivity is low because several other diseases are associated, other biostic stresses are there. In addition to other stresses, this particular diseases is completely lethal. Why is lethal? Within 1 month of infection is completely affected. So now, as I mentioned, I come back here that CIMMYT together with all these partners to come together. They thought science, collaborative steps, and a strategic action is necessary to deal with these devastating diseases. What steps is more important here? Most important, of course, developing a resistant variety is the very key because it will not have any damage to the environment, and you can control the diseases naturally. Yeah. The second part is the very important part: early detection and surveillance. Early detection surveillance in all these countries, because we should monitor how corona is spreading around the world. Similarly, in agriculture, MLN is similar an example. We started putting surveillance, smart surveillance, using a simple diagnostic method called immunostrips, and we used a field-based ODK tool to gather the information based on the GPS. And we identified all the vulnerable areas of Kenya and all the neighboring countries and in Southern Africa. That is the second surveillance part. And advanced diagnostics we have used. Yeah? And most important here, it is not that diagnostic is enough. We need to have a clean seed. That is where the most important, because the virus is moving through seed. And imagine Southern Africa, like Zambia, is alone producing almost 40,000 metric tons seeds to the Kenya because of no diseases. And it is producing similar quantities to Tanzania. And if this country alone hit, and whole Africa will be more affected. And not only that one, many seed companies producing seeds in Zambia and Zimbabwe and Malawi. So with these surveillance mechanisms, we could clearly distinguish Southern Africa is clean from MLN and Eastern Africa having MLN challenges. Now, clean seed movement, what it means? CIMMYT, what it really we did together, we have a stringent quarantine procedures. First thing, we have supported Zimbabwe to have a quarantine site to ensure whatever the seed is coming from Kenya, it has been grown there and identified as a clean seed. Before we moved to seeds to Kenya, to Zimbabwe, what we used to do, what we are doing now, we scout in our research fields and test all the seeds. And we have also developed a new seed treatment decontamination technologies, first in the world, that this virus will be removed. I mean, it will be decontaminated. So imagine that virus is decontaminated and that is free from virus, how easy for the farmers or researchers. The effort taken for almost 10 to 12 years, if it is not going for any partners, imagine the investment time is gone and the benefit is also affected. That technology is a very game changer. And the second, when we do that one, we also engage with KFIS, KFIS. They also test our entries. And once it becomes the important element, then we confirm there is no virus, make sure that it is again grown in Zimbabwe, then we make sure that it is not grown to any other places. And this particular piece of producing disease-free seeds, diagnostic and surveillance, we trained more than 5,000 to 8,000 partners. Who are those partners? National plant protection organizations and national research organizations, private seed companies, and seed producers. So this is the mechanism, because capacity building is central to our strategy. If people are not aware, not practicing, whatever we do research, it has no relevance.
That is true.
Yeah?
That is true. Before we go on, let's break down what you have just spoke about.
Yeah.
Developing resistant varieties. From a scientific perspective, how long does it take, that process?
Okay.
And especially on these MLN disease.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a very important question. You put a very important question in the room. Developing a resistant variety, first we need a resistance source. Any native resistance source, we should have a natural resistance for that one. When I joined CIMMYT, at that time, there was no resistance source. Almost all 80% or 95% is entirely susceptible. So there is a one line is giving the hope of resistance. And we use that line from Kesetsat University in Thailand. It is passing through USDA. That was a very good validations. That is the new journey has begun. And what we did, that is an important question you put in. So people cannot wait until we bring the resistances. They need the food on table today.
Yep.
And what we did, we identified whatever is available on our basket, we identified first 5 hybrids as a tolerant hybrid called as a first generation hybrid. And then the targeted research, focused research for MLN has started. Normally in any disease resistances, which I worked for 31 years in the same field, so it will take almost 7 to 9 years if the streamlined work is in very order. Everything is in order. So in this case, CIMMYT, what we did, we used novel tools and technologies called double haploid technologies and molecular markers. And high precision screening in Naivasha, which is the world-class facility supported by KALRO. We are immensely thankful to KALRO. And then that start has done, and immediately we started identification resistance source, and we developed a focus resistance source and developed a hybrid called second generation hybrids, and which has given 6 to 8 tons, where in comparison there is no yield at all. You have one, I did not have the crop, otherwise you would have appreciated the fully grown matured crops with no yield, and then fully grown. So that is the one which we released around 2018. And within 4 years we developed that one, using this kind of advanced tool. Our journey has not stopped there. We further progressed in gene editing. Yeah? Again, the new journey has started, but that again needs a high, thorough, accurate disease screening steps. That is the base for everything. So then we identified the gene which is responsible for MLN resistance and validated resistances gene. Then our collaborator Carter, they have incorporated that resistance into a elite lines. Today, walk the talk, we can show that those gene edited lines are proven to be very good. Coming back to one step, if you may allow me, that there are many lines in Africa which are very good in the last 4 decades. They are very good. Why? Drought tolerance and low N nitrogen tolerance, which are very good for everything. but they are highly susceptible for MLN.
Yeah.
So that means you need, which is very good, but you need to incorporate that resistance of MLN into those elite lines. And thanks to these novel tools and technologies, we incorporated only MLN resistance. Now, earlier it was susceptible to MLN, but good for everything. Now, this is the new version is all are retained plus MLN resistance. That is called marker-assisted backcrossing program.
Okay.
So that means farmers have the more hopes. That means they can secure the food even though there is a drought, even though there is other things, but they can also secure because of MLN.
Now, you talked about detection and surveillance. I suppose this was in the very early stages once
Yes.
it was detected,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So what goes into that, and what were the outcomes of that?
Oh yeah, that is very important. So in diagnostics, especially smart, accurate diagnostics, there are so many methodologies available. In this case, we need a simple, accurate, and economically viable, because all are field-based technologies. Otherwise, people coming to the lab, advanced technologies, it is not viable. Okay. So in that case, what we did that we used immunostrips, which is very simple, and optimized 1 immunostrips per hectare. And then we optimized the protocol. We trained all the partners. I enabled to give the training of more than 400 certified inspectors in the region. And 8,000 people have been trained in the ground. So that simple technology, we made them called as champions. So that in itself, and using the field-based diagnostic technology called ODK tool, we integrated, and this diagnostic is reflected in the MLN web portal. People can see where MLN is there, where is not there. So this particular steps we have been doing last 10 years. So accurately, almost 20,000 diagnostic points in 8 countries, 10 years, and it is a kind of a passport of where MLN is there, where MLN is not there. So if you allow me, there is one more step we took called digital seed tracker.
Okay.
So that is very new in the baby in the board. What is that board? 2 years back, we validated technologies. We worked closely with Kenya Seed. We worked with KFIS. We worked with Calro. And KFIS is now a regulatory body in Kenya. So we introduced this technology. They very happily accepted it. They made a public participation meeting in Baringo, Marigat, all those areas. And then the technology is available now. What it means, you are a farmer. You are producing seed for a company. From the day one, KFIS will give the ID. And that ID is incorporated there with the barcoding system, GPS, artificial intelligence, that will be part of that one. So then automatically I put all the input. I know when the MLN management is practice should start, everything I put in there. Whether the seed is certified, what are the insecticide I used, and finally, when KFIS make 3-4 inspections, they know where exactly MLN has started, why the seed is being rejected, and why it can be controlled, and what methodology we need to control. That analytics can be done in a single fashion. Last year alone, almost 600 data points we evolved from all the way from Western Kenya to Southern Kenya. We have the complete imagination, clarity. Yeah.
That is very important. It's a very important point to note that, I mean, technology is actually helping in this fight against MLN. So when you talk about clean seeds, distribution, the distribution channels, and ensuring that farmers are actually getting clean seeds and not just any seed.
Correct.
You know,
very important.
How do you ensure that is happening?
A very important 2 dimension to it, this one. KFIS is a very important player in the entire Africa region to showcase as a leadership. Okay. Although every other NPPs are doing equally good job, but KFIS took the major. They put a policy called zero tolerance, because people only understand when the legal framework is properly operating it. So they use that as a major framework to work with all the seed companies. And they have a certified inspector which we help them to understand the skills and knowledge. And what happens when the KFIS inspector goes to every field, they do inspection at every stage, and they guide the people what are the agronomic management practices to be done, which we train so many seed companies, and we through the KFIS and seed companies, they give all those practices. Then if they find one plant that is a zero tolerance, that hectare of seed is completely rejected. Imagine Kenya alone needs 65,000 metric tons of seeds to cater the Kenya requirement. And in that volume, almost half of the seed is being produced, almost near to 38 to 40,000 metric tons being produced in Kenya. Remaining is coming from Zambia. There is a 2 point. 35,000 is coming from Zambia. Is a clean seeds guaranteed. But within the Kenya is also equally important. So using this as a critical dimension, and they certify this farmer, this company is completely clean from MLN. If the KFIS doesn't give the acknowledgement that is certified, then they cannot put in the market. I have seen my own experience in one of the company, almost 2,000 metric tons is just rejected and putting into grind.
Yeah.
Imagine that type of seed is going to the field, it becomes more challenging. So now the seed treatment is another game changer. Imagine I have mentioned about seed tracker and a seed treatment. If seed treatment can be used, and we have developed to a half-ton capacity, if resources are available, we can go up to 10 tons capacities. If this MLN affected area is given that facilities through support of donors or other people, and our farmers of Kenya can produce the total requirement of seed within Kenya, which gives the opportunity to enhance the GDP and reduce the transportation cost and enable them to be more sustainable, because food security is a sustainable factor.
Right. That is very important. I would like you to hear your thoughts on the issue of indigenous seeds. I mean, there has been quite the talk, including in the courts, about indigenous seeds. And what is the risk of farmers exchanging seeds when the season begins, in terms of your efforts and the efforts of other scientists in tackling diseases?
Yeah, that is a very sensitive area you touched. This is very important.
Yeah.
It is not called, technically it is not indigenous.
Yeah.
It is self-retained seeds.
Right.
Yeah, meaning that they produce some seeds, they keep it for them, the household consumption. That is the biggest challenge. I traveled all over Africa. Wherever they go, they say certified seeds. But I ask the question, then why is there is a MLN is coming in? Oh, this is just for our kitchen garden, our own farm. That is the biggest challenge. How to address that one is the big question in the room.
Yeah.
So we need to, that's where we call community of practices. We have put a community of practices in entire Africa. This community of practice, why is relevant and what it will do. So all these stakeholders should come together and exchange, these are all the challenges, and develop a solution, practices and policies around to those problems. So now KFIS together with several stakeholders are working how to educate people. It is not, you cannot put the force there. You have to educate them. You have to help them by producing certified seeds. Slowly you can make as a community practices. Help them, enable them and sustain them. That means we are able to make them to grow together. That is the most important. We can't use the force, but we have to help them the value of certified seeds.
Right, empowering the farmers with the knowledge that they need.
Exactly.
Right, another challenge that farmers have always faced, and I ask anyone in the agriculture sector this question, is the issue of extension services.
Yeah.
Because we know that farmers are struggling to get extension services. The ones that are available are private and very expensive, and they would be able to help with combating such problems, right?
Very much true.
Right, what is your thought on that?
Yeah, this is our biggest mission. Biggest mission. It is not by words. It is, if you ask me, you talk to any people who we are engaged with, how we deliver that community of practice or extension practices. So this is what we say, strengthening diagnostic surveillance, phenotyping, agronomic management is around this community capacity building is the key. And you may add one element to it, youth in agriculture, empowering youth. So now, what we have to make as a proper way of extension services. So we took that leadership. We tried to promote that leadership into every organization leadership. For example, I think I can say more than 50 to 80 trainings I have done personally. It's a very, very intensive one. And then I call them as champions. Through our various projects supported by Gates Foundations and USDA, and then other plant health 1CGR organizations, and we enable them and make a small groups. So then we provided the technical know-how. We gave a lot of backstopping in terms of diagnostic, in terms of disease management, in terms of producing clean free seeds, in terms of growing the right varieties, also developing the resistance varieties. So we made several sectors and we made the champions. And we constantly monitor them so that they are doing the right job. In that case, they are very successful. And 2 days back, you may not believe, in Zambia, around 80 inspectors, Dr. Ken Mesiska, he invited me for a training. I provide the training for around 70 to 80 inspectors. They are going to embrace around 36,000 hectares. 36,000 hectares for what? Seed production. So they don't want a single seed which can be hiding somewhere having MLN. Kenya is also doing the same step. They're always, now they're inviting me for next seasons. They want to engage all their staff, various companies, come together, train them, so that it becomes a practice, it becomes a culture. We don't believe in just providing the training material is a training. And it should be a culture of the entire ecosystem. That has been established very well. That's why we are very proud. If any disease comes to Africa, a transboundary threat, the system is very well validated, it is working, they can handle to the point. You may consider one more point here. 2024 in Zambia, El Nino has hit very hard. The food security was in the big challenge in Zambia. What can they do to bring the food on the table to the very poorest of the poor? And they have no choice to bring the grains from Tanzania. Tanzania has a MLN. So now you are battling with the two threat in the room. And it becomes a very... And then we supported them a proper training for all the inspectors to inspect all the grains to make sure not a single grain landing into a trouble of Zambia, which is clean for MLN.
Yeah.
So they could manage more than 300,000 tons of grains bringing from Tanzania to Zambia, make sure that this is completely free of MLN, but they provided the food. This year, they got back to the normal agriculture. So these are all the areas how training has to be happen on the, proactively, not reactively.
Right, it has to be proactive.
Yeah.
You say that the Southern African region is MLN free.
Yeah.
How was that achieved?
Yeah, it is very important questions. So first thing is that one thing we should say, the awareness. All the stakeholder awareness is the key. And you should give them a proper training on diagnostics and surveillance constantly. And one important area you need to remember that African countries, many African countries, have a porous transboundary mechanisms. If the borders are not being strengthened enough to diagnose, any seed can come, any grains can come, it will be very challenging. So what we have helped them to strengthen the diagnostics in the borders, ports, testing centers, screening facility, quarantine sites, everything we gave the awareness. We helped them to diagnose on a training basis, on the lab-to-lab training. We went there in the field, how to conduct this training in the field, diagnosis. And the third point, and we also monitor at the regional level. And the most important point, we make sure no seed going from Eastern Africa to Southern Africa having any MLN. Because since they are completely aware the risk of getting MLN, they are putting very, very tight security. They can't take any risk. They are very much aware. So that way, we are able to have a complete flagship of achieving Southern Africa is free from MLN, and Eastern Africa, we reduce the incidence and the spread of MLN. So now we have to live with it, MLN. We can't go away from it. But what we can do, we have to reduce the severity by these practices. And this can be an example for any other diseases, and it can be example for the whole world if Africa can able to handle this kind of major threat, why not other part of Asia, Europe, and America? And Africa has demonstrated coming together with all the partners, with all the technologies, collaborations. I think we achieved the biggest possible areas. Yeah.
That is a good job. Well done to you and all the other partners.
Yeah.
Now, do you suppose there's a time when we'll say that East Africa is MLN free?
I would not say MLN will be going anywhere.
Okay.
You see, there is another challenge is coming in. People see symptoms, only they call it as MLN. Nowadays, the challenge is that due to climate change, there is no symptoms. We are hearing from the people, no symptoms, but seed is positive for MLN. There is a symptoms, but no seeds is working. Yeah. So that means there is a challenging aspect is coming in due to climate change. Second, virus is also not behaving properly if the climate is changing. And through our regular surveillance mechanism, we found almost 20-25% of crop area still with MLN. And it is more. Rwanda is another example. They have been achieving more than 3,000 immunostrips per year. And everybody is doing. Now, people are very much aware that MLN is a risk. But what is this point? As you rightly mentioned, one plant in the country is equal to the same risk of 1,000 plants. It's just a matter of spreading. Now, what we need to do, use of resistant varieties and use of chemical seed treatment called Gaucho Cruiser, which can protect the seed from the viriliferous insects. Means the insect, when it acquires the virus, it becomes viriliferous, and we feed the plants. Even though the insect comes, it will not affect the crop up to 8 weeks. And the second part is that, and third part is that using this chemical seed treatment called, we used remove the virus. If they remove the virus, because you can remove the virus in the whole ecosystem, people have to take this technology very serious and immediately get up to the point all those rejected seeds should be treated and it should be made available to the farmers, not to be part of a grain systems.
Right. Okay, and so when we look at the other agriculture value chains, we know that from a phytosanitary perspective, markets are very stringent, especially in the West.
Yeah.
And a lot of produce has been stopped from entering those markets.
Right.
Sometimes it's diseases, sometimes it's maturity and just early picking of crops.
Yeah.
And so how can a model like this that is tackling MLN be used to tackle other challenges in other agriculture value chains?
Yeah, other agricultural value chains, we are focusing on that one. So especially if you see in mainly in, for example, vegetables, okay? So, and some of the wheat, food crops or vegetables or food. So the most important is the seed or plant material is a source of moving the pathogens. So they have to use this model. Traceability, trackability is the key. And diagnostic is the key. If I bring a seed or a plant material from Yambu, Nyari or Kitale, anywhere, KFIS should know using this seed tracker model. This model will be helping. Immediately I have a barcoding. If I use this one, who produced this? At what stage it has infections? And then, when that is the ingenuity of this technologies, if I give this barcoding information to the point where other countries going, then I can also use their technology similar to it, where who is going to produce that in America, who is producing in Africa, Europe, Asia. So then if that incidents happen like in Corona, I can immediately pick this seed coming from Embu, this seed is from Kitale. Like I can backtrack. Then I know this is the risk we are transferring from Embu, or I'm just giving an example, to the another country. Then I can focus on that area, contain it, rather than affecting the whole regional farmers, because they're not at fault. So then you embrace the technology for that region to eliminate the virus. Similarly, for other crops, they have to use digital platform, artificial intelligence, and this kind of eliminating the pathogen in the ecosystem, so that the agriculture become one, not one disease or one crop. So that collectively in the ecosystem it should be robust and sustainable and scalable and economical. Yeah, and it should be trade-free, friendly, so that people get the nutrition, food secured, and their family will be always happy.
Right. A lot of the work that you do requires very big funding, so to say.
Yeah.
And we know that it has been a challenge year in, year out about research funding in Africa.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this, and what role do you think government and partners can play to ensure that money and resources are being pumped into research?
It's a very important questions you have touched. The funding is the biggest challenge nowadays, especially funding income when it comes to agriculture research. They feel that it is not a priority areas, but it is a priority areas. If there is no food in the house, what will be the next consequences? We cannot even sleep.
Yeah.
We cannot even think. So all the funding agencies should really think and prioritize what are all the critical roles, like we call biotic stresses, like emerging transboundary threats, pest or fall armyworm or MLN. All this has to be prioritized, number one. And they have to integrate, they have to fund more advanced technologies, futuristic technologies, so that they cannot be simply in isolated manner. It should be regional way. So they have to bring the environment, engaging all the collaborators together. Because I worked with several collaborators in America, other people, they have funding challenges. But in Africa more, there is a limitations. So government has to prioritize. This much money has to go to that priorities. For example, MLN, or aflatoxin, mycotoxin, or ear rot. These are all the key areas. So they have to reserve some national funding, and partners also should support, like companies should give some philanthropic funding for this research. Yeah, and donors should change their priorities for these key areas, and not holding that discipline into accountabilities.
Right. There have been declarations that were done, even the Maputo Declaration.
Yeah.
Governments agreed 10% of budgets will go into agriculture. But countries such as ours and others in the region have been perennially missing this target. I think we're at around 3%
You are right
now.
Yeah.
So what is the challenge? Is it the will that is not there, or are governments just jostling many funding needs, so to say, in the country?
Yeah, I agree that government is really struggling. The several priorities coming into the same directions. So when it comes to the national priority, they always think this is okay. We have achieved some basic food. Then let us move on to that one. But what I say, a food should always keep some best to base priorities. It should not be disturbed. Although you can develop other infrastructures, but this kind of priorities should not be disturbed. Yeah.
Right. So as we come to a close of the conversation, what would be your closing remarks, especially in terms of tackling MLN, moving forward, and what the farmers need to know?
Yeah, to me, farmers are the first priorities. Farmers are the first priorities. They want a total solution to the agri-systems, whether one disease or multiple disease. They want a variety or hybrid which is completely having all the stress resilient component. And it should be affordable, it should be available, accessible to the farmers. And that way, all the collaborators, partners should come towards that, giving one solution, not a particular variety. Everything should be packaged into solutions.
Yeah.
And for the scientific communities, we should always look for the innovative, futuristic technologies, and engage the youth. And because if you don't engage youth, and future will be not be strong, and youth inclusive of genders, yeah. And also the third component is that government policies should really look into it, because this is the case where policy is very required in terms of handling the transboundary risk, in terms of making sure that funding is there, in making sure that there is a proper linkage between the several stakeholders. That policy is a must. Yeah.
Right. And you mentioned the issue of young people being involved.
Yeah.
You are the kind of career that you're in is in the STEM world, so to say. And what would be your advice to young people who want to get into, research, and especially scientific research?
Yeah, this is my always first priority. Encouraging, inspiring youth is the first step. I would say youth, there is a lot of creative mind happening in agricultures. And that will directly translate into a social food securities. So if you do one software, if you do one part, it is just for that mechanic. But if you develop this technology for food, whole community, whole society will be happy. And you have a lot of talent. You can bring the artificial intelligence here. You can bring the modern biotechnologies here. You can bring any blockchain agriculture here. Everything can be integrated in agriculture. And it's only hardship. Don't fear about hardship. Hardship, when you have a technologies, I can say, using this phone, I can see where exactly this variety is growing. And there is a technology is already available. A farmer in anywhere in Kenya can say, I need to grow maize in this season. Can I grow? It will automatically synthesize that, okay, in Nari, next 2 months is not going to be a good rain. Can you use the drought tolerance varieties or use these practices? It will translate. That technology is there for you, youth. Please think about this technology, help the poorest of the poor, and money is always coming. If you bring the good proposition to the table, return on investment, money is always there. Don't just look for money, but look for the society benefit.
Using our talent, our
Exactly.
brains to solve the problems of the
and
community.
help other friends in the community so that everybody coming into agriculture.
How about from now the education perspective, having more people in the STEM subjects?
Yeah, that is the biggest concern which I'm seeing. There are some subjects is gradually they're moving away from the mainstream. For example, crop protection, some of the areas, people are not being attracted. And then people have to really focus some of the case studies like this, and enable those youth, look, this is the example which we have. And to me, there is another point. Skill development is not there much. Skill development is an important element. It is not like exam-oriented syllabus. It should be knowledge-oriented. It should be skill-oriented. It should be empowering and connecting them, either startups, and then the youth will automatically come. They need proper guidance and orientation and monitoring. Then I've found so many youth, talented youth in Kenya and Africa, but they need some resources to start up.
Right.
And that is where the donors can think about how this youth can be channelized, harnessing the technologies, providing the benefit to the agriculture. Yeah.
And is CIMIT doing anything in that regard?
Very much. For example, we encourage youth, especially we support several students to do MSc, PhDs. And when they complete, I can tell you, they are very much into the real applications. For example, my PhD student in Ethiopia, Temescan, he has done studies on maize ear rot, aflatoxin.
Okay.
He has completely mapped the whole Ethiopia on what is the aflatoxin ear rot, and collaboration with US universities. Then that is a good example. If he can do, and then immediately using that information to his regular research. And there is a similar example can be created all around Africa and make a network. So there is a good way, and social network can be another areas. It needs to be properly oriented towards this real required areas.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for your thoughts, and thank you for the work that you're doing to tackle this disease in Kenya. Asante sana.
Thank you so much for this time. I'm sure it will be a good discussion. Yeah.
Okay, that is Dr. Suresh Lingadahali Mahabaleshwara.
Perfect.
Yeah. Thank you. I am grateful for your time. We have been talking to him. He's a pathologist at the International Maize and Wheat Improvement Center. The Spanish abbreviation for that is CIMIT. And we have been talking about the maize lethal necrosis disease and how scientists, researchers, partners came together to ensure that the maize production in Africa is is still continuing, you know, that we are not losing 100% of our yield to this disease. And as he says, more is still happening. Surveillance is at an all-time high. Data points are all over the 8 countries that the surveillance is ongoing. And of course, we hope that this continues so that we can continue enjoying our ugali and, you know.
Sure, yeah. I think ugali is when I saw ugali and sadza in Southern Africa, I love that food,
Yeah, it's amazing. So as you continue enjoying your ugali, remember that there are some scientists and researchers who are fighting diseases that could affect the yield of our
At this
crop.
platform, I want to thank all our collaborators, partners, and students, and for their commitment for a stronger and a future and a healthy planet. I really thank everybody who enjoyed this journey, who contributed to this mission.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And that is where we end the conversation this morning on BizCheck. Thank you very much for your valued company and just watching. We hope that you learned something from both our conversations this morning. Asante sana. Enjoy the rest of your viewing. My colleague Sheila Kayaro Yogo is on standby to bring you the latest from the counties on Kurunzi Mashinani. My name is Betty Kiptum. And our interpreter's sign language, the first hour was Lensa Odingo. I can't see the second hour, but thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.